Good morning. My name is Rowena Zimmerman, and I'm the Director of Communications and Outreach with Blue Ridge PRISM. We're really happy that you are joining us today. We've got just over 700 people signed up to attend this webinar, so we're really excited to share all this great information with you all. Today, our quarterly meeting is about how neighborhood associations can address invasive plants. But before we get to that, I just want to make sure you can hear me and that you'll be able to hear all of our panelists. So if you look at the slide, it gives you hints on how to deal with it if you don't hear us very well. And in the end, you can enable your closed captioning, which is at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little CC next to it in a box. And if you click on that, then all of our words will be written down for you at the bottom. Some Zoom tips. We ask that when you have any comments you'd like to share with the general audience, or links you'd like to share, to please put it in the chat right there at the bottom of your screen. That's the function. We love to share information. That's where we say hello and write where we're from. If you have any questions for PRISM or for our panelists, please address that in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. That's where we'll be able to answer you most effectively and be able to see your questions. So general comments, saying hello, whatever in the chat, sharing information, questions for PRISM or for the panelists, please direct that to the Q&A. Also, I wanted to share with you our upcoming brown bag webinar that we're really excited about. We're going to have Dr. Andrea Weeks who's going to do an online tutorial for our audience on documenting invasive plants with herbaria, which is the plural form of herbarium. And it's really basically how to submit invasive plant specimens for research. And so this is a free webinar to learn how you can collect and submit invasive plant specimens for research studies across Virginia. And if you don't know, herbariums are large collections of botanical specimens. And these big herbariums need your help to learn how invasive plants are migrating across the Commonwealth. So Dr. Weeks is going to teach the audience what to look for, how to collect the specimens, how to document them, and how to submit them utilizing the herbarium method. So if you're in any way interested in contributing plant samples to this important project, we hope you'll join us for this webinar. And information on how to register is on our website, blueridgeprism.org. I was going to say something else about that, but I've completely blanked. But we're really excited about that. And oh, that's what as a master naturalist, I wanted to say that I think this would be a wonderful continuing education opportunity for other master naturalists out there, because this is something I think a lot of master naturalists would be interested in. So I wanted to give a shout out to that. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can in this webinar and answer we've got our staff on the Q&A trying to answer everything you're asking us. But if we don't get to you, please feel free to contact us at info@blueridgeprism.org and ask us your questions, because we do want to be able to answer your questions and make sure that you have all the information that you need. Also, if you go to our website and click on the events portion of that, then you can see all of the other events that we've got coming up in the future. Now I'd like to just turn over the screen to Rod Walker, who's the president of Blue Ridge PRISM, who's just going to give a short update on what we've been up to in the past few months. So I'm going to stop sharing, Rod.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Welcome to what should be a really interesting session. For a PRISM update. Well, there's a lot going on, so I'm only going to hit a few highlights about some of the major activities. One of which I think is really important to mention is we're deep into creating a library of short plant-specific videos. Some videos talk about how to identify a specific plant. Other videos talk about how to control a specific plant. Lauren and the team have been doing yeoman's work on this. My understanding is the first 64 videos are now available on the PRISM YouTube channel, with many more to come. Yeah, another huge activity and undertaking for the PRISM has been the Virginia Invasive Plant Coalition, which is alive and well. This was a new organization formed ultimately as a result of a 3-day workshop that we put on in Charlottesville in December of 2023, with 80 people in attendance representing more than 70 organizations. And there are now 6 ongoing action groups that are addressing things like educating the public on invasive plants, surveying retail garden centers to document who is selling, which of the 103 invasive plants listed by the Department of Conservation and Recreation. How do we go about removing invasive plants on public lands? How do we do workforce development to increase the supply of contractors and increase the use of volunteers, particularly on public lands? We're also looking at research programs to create more cost-effective methods for treating these plants, as well as information to support our policy work. Policy work is focused on Richmond and improving state laws and regulations. And of course, last but not least, there are people who are going to be working on taking what you're going to hear about today and promulgating it more on a statewide basis. So with all these actions and more underway, the PRISM is actually looking to hire a senior person to help manage and move all these activities forward. We're working on funding this position for the next couple of years. To that end, we recently received a large, generous grant from a major foundation, which we need to match. So if any of you are so inclined to donate to the cause, this would be a good time to do it. On the policy front, we've made a lot of progress, and there's more to come. And some of you may recall 2023 legislative session, we got a bill passed and signed that required tradespersons to notify landowners in writing if they are going to be using DCR listed invasive plants in the landscaping projects that they're doing or planting. That has required new regulations to be promulgated by the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Those regulations are well along in their multi-year process, and hopefully that will be the regs will be done later this year, and the process will actually get implemented either late this year or sometime early next year. In the 2024 session, we got a bill passed that enables local government entities to make use of volunteers to apply herbicides. So this law is now in effect and available. So that's a great opportunity. In the 2025 session, the governor finally signed a bill that we've been trying to get passed, which requires signage at retail garden centers proximate to any of the basically to the DCR listed invasive plants. And that one should start being implemented, if you will, in January of 2027. So those are on the way. As most of you probably know, we have 2 invasive management specialists, Jacob Adel and Natalie Walker. We're very busy with various events and visiting with individual landowners to help them understand what they have and how to deal with it. On top of all this, there's lots more updates and information available at blueridgeprism.org, as well as at virginiainvasives.org and on our YouTube channel. And so now I'm going to turn this back to Rowena, and I'm looking forward to the main event. Thank you. Rowena, there we go.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and share this now. Appreciate that great update, Rod. We're really excited about future things happening with PRISM. And so we're here at the main event. As I said before, our webinar today is working together, how neighborhood associations can address invasive plants. And we've got 3 representatives or leaders of 3 different organizations, and they're all pretty different from each other. So you'll learn something different from each of them and who are going to talk to us about how they formed their groups and how they make them work. So we've got Wendy Cohen, Liza Moorman, and Mike Littman. And right now, Wendy, can you share with us a little bit about yourself and your group?
Sure. So thank you first to Blue Ridge PRISM for this opportunity and for all of you for being here. It's a wonderful gathering of people concerned about the invasive plant crisis we have. Fairfax Invasive Removal Alliance, or FIRA, we're actually three of us that are co-founders. I'm just representing the three of us, co-founders and organizers. It's myself, Wendy Cohen, and Inez Nedeljkovic and Rika Dolis. And we work primarily in Fairfax County, though we do have a statewide initiative campaign that we're working on that I'll mention a little later. We were started in January of 2024. And the three of us meet about once a week, and with a lot of texts and emails in between. We send monthly updates to our coalition members. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then our focus is advocacy. So we are also meeting together on other, with other organizations, with our supervisors, with elected, officials in the county, et cetera. So we usually debrief right after those meetings. So those are other opportunities for us to get together. So that's kind of what we're all about. And we are a coalition of neighborhood associations, and our focus again is advocacy. Any pictures you'll see of us are basically us standing at microphones or standing with various officials, et cetera. We don't have a lot of plant pictures. We do some stewardship around native species, invasive species week. We'll go with our coalition, and if they ask for a site visit, we'll pair up with other groups and go visit. But other than that, mostly we're talking to people.
Thanks, Wendy. And, I think it's really important that people know that, more than 2 million Virginians live in a neighborhood or community association area. So that's approximately 800,000 homes and more than 9,000 community associations. And from what I understand, by 2040, they estimate that the community association housing model will become the most widespread form of housing in Virginia, right? So as you can see, that makes a neighborhood association a powerful vehicle toward affecting change in a community. And the potential for these organizations to make a difference is huge and seems to be growing. So thank you for all the stuff that you're doing. Moving on to Liza, she's going to talk now about Glenmore invasive warriors. You with us, Liza?
Your pardon. I'm keeping myself muted. I have COVID and keep coughing. So
oh my goodness. Thanks for being here anyway.
Thank you, Blue Ridge PRISM, for having me here to join you. And I'm tickled to see how many people have signed up with interest in this sort of thing. Yes, I lead a group called the Glenmore Invasive Warriors. We are in the gated community of Glenmore, which is in Keswick in Albemarle County. It is more than 830 homes and several thousand residents. We have 1,300 acres, more than 480 of which are common area acres. And our group is tasked with keeping track of those 480 acres of common area to manage invasives. We got started about 2 years ago. And I'll tell you more about that in a bit, but in general, what we do is actual on the boots work as well as educational work. We meet twice every month for scheduled work days. And then our sector leaders, our leaders in our smaller group, go out and survey and manage the areas that they are responsible for many more hours each month. I will tell you, from January to June of this year, we've already put in 306 person hours out in the woods in Glenmore.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Wendy. I'm sorry. Thank you, Liza. I was trying to find my forward button. I couldn't find it. Okay. Mike, can you talk to us a little bit about LIRA?
Yeah, I sure can. And I'm going to pile on thanks to Blue Ridge PRISM for putting this on. If anyone's wondering if invasive plant and the issue is taking hold, you can look at the 700 registrations for this webinar. Incredible, and it shows Blue Ridge PRISM's presence in this space to be able to pull that many registrations for a webinar. So thank you guys. My name is Mike Littman. I live in Ashburn, Virginia, in Loudoun County. I'm the president of an organization known as the Loudoun Invasive Removal Alliance, or LIRA. It's an alliance of homeowner associations and communities working together with other organizations to include Loudoun County, the government, Loudoun Soil and Water, Blue Ridge PRISM, and many others. And our mission is to protect the county from the negative impacts of invasive plants. As far as how we got started or when we got started, Ashburn Village was the first HOA to join LIRA or I guess begin LIRA in April of 2023. That's my HOA, and I'm on the board there. In 2023, we picked up 28 HOAs. In 2024, I looked at this yesterday. I was kind of curious. This is good. This webinar made me kind of look at the history of how LIRA was formed. In 2024, we added another 28 exactly HOAs, and we've got 16 so far this year, with likely 17 coming on Sunday. Per Rowena's comment about HOAs, these in Loudoun County, HOAs represent close to 2/3 the population. So right now, we have over half the population as part of LIRA. It's a way to really tap the constituents of Loudoun County. And lastly, how often do we meet? Meeting, as far as LIRA goes, it means a lot of things. It can be, we have a 5-person board who meets and does strategy sessions amongst ourselves, or as part of a weekly check-in that we do now with the Loudoun County government. It can be an HOA hosting an invasive removal training or workshop. We've done a bunch of those this year and last year. It can be partnering. We did an event I'm going to talk about called Scrape for the Grape, where we partner with the Tourism Bureau, Extension Office, and wineries for an 800 volunteer person effort. So it can mean a bunch of things, and that's my intro.
Mike?
Yes.
Nice intro. Thank you. And now we are actually going to go a little deeper into your stories on how you got started as an organization, because I think a lot of people who are signed on are maybe interested in starting something in their own neck of the woods, but don't know how to start. So why don't we start with you, Wendy? Can you talk with us a little bit of your origin story and how you got this whole thing started?
Sure, absolutely. So all three of us, the three organizers I mentioned before, we had been doing volunteer environmental work for a while, particularly stewardship type things, for various other organizations, of which there are numerous in Fairfax County. And Rake in particular was interested in bringing in neighborhood associations. And we talked to Margaret Fisher, who is the head of Plant Nova Natives, who is, a real incredible organization, doing a lot up here in Northern Virginia around invasive work. And she got us together. She put the three of us together and told us about LIRA, Mike's organization. And we decided to become what I call the sister organization, FIRA, in Fairfax County, modeled somewhat after LIRA, though we have some different needs and different obstacles in different ways. And so we felt we had to fill a niche, because a lot of stewardship groups around, but one that's just devoted to advocacy is where we fit in. And so our first necessary thing was, with advocacy, numbers count. And so what we had to do is we had to really build our coalition of neighborhood associations. That means HOAs, sit-in associations, and condo associations. We have a lot of people that are not HOAs, that are just citizen associations or condo associations that don't have common land, but are affiliated. And then we need to get name recognition, both from the invasive plant community, but also with our county officials. That was really important to us. So we very quickly defined our mission and our goals, and we created a list of asks. If we're going to do advocacy, we've got to know what we're asking for. And what do we want our local government to do? So we set up our website, and our asks are on there, and we have a small Facebook presence. And then we developed a slideshow presentation that laid out what we were all about, that we presented at board meetings, what we presented to our supervisors. We participate in a lot of tabling events. You saw Inez at a table at an event, at any kind of local fair, any event, we kind of got the word out. And once we had about 30 neighborhood associations, kind of a critical mass number, that's when we started to switch our focus more to kept coalition building, but also moved on to the actual advocacy. We started to meet with our county supervisors, county officials, and making suggestions for how our local government could address our list of asks. And we really honed our asks as we spoke to them. We listened to them and we got ideas for what kinds of things would be possible and what kinds of things, how local government could work with us to make things, better in the invasive, with the invasive plant crisis. So, and that's where we stand. Yeah, that's how we got going.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy.
Sure.
And Liza, can you share a little bit about Glenmore Invasive Warriors, that origin story?
Absolutely, happy to. In June of 2023, a friend of mine and I had noticed, we were neighbors, and had noticed that we were losing trees in the common area around our houses, and became aware of the fact that it was because of vines that were strangling the trees. And so then my interest in invasives was spiked, and I invited Tom Sayeli from Blue Ridge PRISM to come out and give a talk. We got about, 12 neighbors who got together, like-minded and interested. And we had both a sort of a lecture and a hands-on education session, showing us what we could do about it in our community. And I was hooked. I then went and met with the chair of our Common Area Management Committee at the time, told her my concerns, proposed the development of this group, and she was very engaged and in fact became one of our core volunteers. And we began to organize so that starting in the fall, we had our first work day, I think in October of 2023. We have had, over the years, we've had education by Blue Ridge PRISM a couple of times and from some other folks, but we began to build our knowledge, and we were working once a month in the first few months, and then twice a month starting in 2024, we began going out. We divided Glenmore into sectors because it's a lot of land that we're responsible for. And so each sector leader is responsible for surveying the area under their ownership, if you will, and keeping us aware of what invasives they see. And then we may go out there and work on a large group work day, or they may go out themselves. We became pretty quickly a subcommittee of the organizational structure of our homeowners association. So we sort of institutionalized our group, which I think was tremendously helpful for our credibility within the community. And in time, they gave us a budget to help purchase all the herbicides and equipment that we needed. But that all happened as we were working. We really got on the ground first, and then the good things came later. But that's really the way that we got together.
That's wonderful. And I love all these photos of the work that you all do, the before and after.
Yes, and we've done some tabling events. I think you have a picture of that,
right.
and you can see that it's a handful of hardworking folks who get out and do all the work. And thank you to Lauren for those signs there in the background at that table.
I recognize them too. Yes,
those are Blue Ridge PRISMs. Thank you for that.
Okay, Mike, can you share with us about your origin story for Lyra?
Yeah, sure. It started, so I'm a former, well, I guess I'm a master gardener. And there were master gardeners at a number of HOAs in Eastern Loudoun County, and we decided to get together on a regular basis and share best practices. And at a meeting in March of 2023, one of the members, Jane Kirshner of Cascades HOA, suggested, we're all struggling with this invasive plant issue. Why don't we see if we can't get support and work with the Loudoun County government to see if they'd help us and partner with us. And I said, look, I'm on a board at Ashburn Village. We came together, put together a motion. Cindy Falconer was one of the writers, along with Jane and myself, of that motion, and it was passed. And it basically asked for support from the Board of Supervisors and from Loudoun County for the challenge that we were all facing. We started by focusing on the biggest HOA. So my board passed it. We focused on the biggest HOAs. I had a friend who's on a board at another HOA. He actually, I didn't realize, had resigned and gone elsewhere, but he put me in touch with a guy named Fred Ferraris, who became part of our board, and he had his HOA join. And then he mentioned it to his general manager, who had a network of general managers, and the word just started to spread. It was all word of mouth. And we networked through folks we knew, and it grew, like I said, to 28 in the first year. The next step was to how do we work with the Board of Supervisors? And we identified through partners two good supervisors, one Republican, one Democrat by design. We kept it bipartisan, who would be our champions. They steered us towards things that we should do to become relevant early on, like have a board. So like I mentioned earlier, we grew to 5 board members, and they come up with a name. We didn't have a name at that time. So then we became LIRA. And from there, one of the board members, another one, Natalie Manzanares, had a very good talent, which was designing our logo and website. So we had a good board, and everybody kind of jumped in and made things happen. October 23 is when things really started to happen. That's when we had 13 speakers go before the Board of Supervisors. And it was a very deliberate 13, representing the HOAs, but also representing the wineries, to talk about the rural economy impact of invasive plants, as well as the Farm Bureau, Loudoun Wildlife, PEC, etc. And by the end of the meeting, our board champions had put forward a board member initiative to basically look into this issue. During that meeting, by the way, famously, our board chair said a couple things, and it just shows the lack of awareness. And it's by no fault of anyone's. It's just there's not a lot of awareness about invasive plants. But our board chair made comments like, Bradford pear, it's such a beautiful tree. How could that be bad? Sarcastically, because she was learning. And tree of heaven, if it's called tree of heaven, how could that be a bad thing? So it was just interesting. And to almost a person, the supervisors were learning at that point. But they had decided to investigate the issue. And 2 months later, 2023, they actually passed. And both times, every time they voted on a measure with these invasive plants, they voted unanimously, which was really exciting and important. There was broad support across the supervisors. And that at that time, December 23, it was for $250,000 for a consultant to design a program to address the issue in our county. And lastly, this is how we got going, and I'll mention this as a very important step, and Rod touched on it earlier. Blue Ridge PRISM invited LIRA to their now, I'll call it legendary workshop of 80 of the leading minds in the invasive world. How I got in there, I still don't know, but they did invite me, and I appreciated it. And with Blue Ridge PRISM by our side, strong support from the Board of Supervisors, and our membership growing by the day, we literally, I'm going to be on a call this Sunday with an HOA that should be HOA 73. We were off to the races. So that's how we got going.
That's a great story. Yeah, it's amazing how large Lyra has come, and I still remember meeting you at that
Legendary.
workshop. And there's so much energy, wasn't there? And look what you did with it. So congratulations. So, we like to think that this all just came together beautifully, but I'm sure that there were some obstacles that you all had to deal with. And I'm wondering if you could each share what your biggest obstacles were, and how you overcame them. So everyone here can kind of learn from you and any mistakes or any problems that you dealt with. Liza, why don't we start with you first?
Sure. Our biggest obstacle has been and continues to be increasing the size of our volunteer group, and also in figuring out the best way to engage residents within the community and help them to understand what it is we're doing and want to help us. And this remains a challenge. We've done a number of things to try to increase awareness and appreciation for the work that we do. I almost immediately within the first few months, I began doing a monthly bulletin that the Glenmore community sends to any registered, household within the community. And that includes education, highlights whichever invasive is most problematic in that month or most vulnerable, and was a way to advertise our upcoming work days. My son, you may have seen, I think you saw a couple of times, some folks holding a Asiatic bittersweet vine wearing a green sweatshirt. My son made us sweatshirts that say Invasive Warriors on the side. We did that. We started a speaker series. And so 2 summers, the past 2 summers, we've had between 3 and 4 speakers come. We've invited expert horticulturalists, landscape architects who specialize in native species, and of course, invasive species management experts we've had as well. Those have been very well attended. Our most recent activity was we began having garden tours of residents' gardens who have a large proportion of native species in their garden, just to show our neighbors, here's what it can look like if you are focused on natives. I think our biggest problem is conveying why it is we do what we do to our fellow residents. And I think we've been trying to show them that it's not just that we all want to get out and roll up our sleeves and hack something, but that we're trying to remove the invasive species so as to preserve the natives and these beautiful green spaces. And I'll quickly say our second obstacle has been figuring out the boundary between common area and homeowners' property. And I saw that a question had been sent in about that, and that is a really a difficult thing when you're in a homeowners association. We use Albemarle's GIS system, although that's been down in the last month. We use the maps from Glenmore, but that is difficult. And so it requires trying to have a conversation with individual homeowners and say, we're here in this common area and we're treating leatherleaf mahonia and nandina and motaflora rose and Chinese silvergrass in the common area that likely came from residents' properties. So helping to have that conversation about what is in one comes into the other has been an important step for us to take, and is a continuing project that we're managing.
Thank you, Liza. Mike, would you like to go next? And I think you're still muted.
I was, thank you. Yeah, I just heard it from Liza a little bit, and I saw it in one of the questions, I think John Oliver, but I've seen it in so many of the pre-registration questions. Is like, how do you get people engaged in this stuff? And to me, it's the biggest challenge. And that's why I would say, the biggest challenge is bringing people on board. How do you do that? How do you rally the largest audience? And I would say, meet them where they are. So if I just talked about invasive plants crowding out natives and destroying our ecosystem, and that's all, I went down that path, I've lost half the audience. They've got differing values or other pressing issues. So how do you attract the other half? And, I found through talking to a variety of folks, it could be, well, in fact, I'll go back to that I'm going to call it legendary workshop that we had in Charlottesville. Most people, rightfully so, brought an invasive plant of some sort as a prop. We were all supposed to bring a prop to introduce ourselves. I brought a wine bottle, which I'm sure got some funny looks. And I brought that wine bottle because I'm not worried about getting the people who are concerned about the environment. I'm worried about the other side. And for Loudoun County, we have 50 wineries in our county, and our rural economy is being hit by the spotted lanternfly, which of course is drawn in by the tree of heaven. So the focus on the rural economy is huge for us in Loudoun County, the farms and the vineyards, et cetera. But the other angle, if you want to get the masses, is health and safety. So, I can go down a list, and I will mention a few here. Japanese stiltgrass, those Hawaiian wildfires were caused by, a few years ago, were caused by non-native grass. And we had something like that happen here in Loudoun County, where a farmer who had done controlled burns for 30 years suddenly lost control of one 3 years ago. Guess what? It was fall and it was Japanese stiltgrass. The nandinas, the berries will make your dog sick. Bradford pears, they come down every storm, knocking down power lines, homes, and God forbid, people. Japanese barberry not only attracts ticks, but ticks with Lyme disease. English ivy harbors mosquitoes, et cetera, et cetera. You know, focusing on things that gets everyone's attention or hitting the right audience. I just think that's so important when you're facing those challenges. The other one that I get, especially when we went to, you know, ask the county for funding, I personally feel responsible for taxpayer dollars. Every dollar that we raise, I feel like we're responsible for as LERA. We're the ones who asked for this money, and it's taxpayer dollars that are going towards it. If the intent, and this is the hurdle, right? It's unwinnable. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that. They're everywhere. So once you know what they are, you can't unsee them, and they're everywhere. So how do you win this battle? It's a waste of money. I've heard that. I think the challenge, and I would, by the way, I would agree with that. If this money for this grant program I'm going to talk about was just spent on a conservation program to remove invasives, I say, please don't do it. You know, let's cancel it now. This is a public awareness campaign. That's how I look at it. I believe, if I had to guess, and I've used this number for a while, I'd say 5% of Virginians can name an invasive plant. And I'll go back to that board presentation with our supervisors. I don't think any of them could at that time name them. They're very familiar with them, you know, going on 2 years later. So what reason does Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, and other nurseries have to stop selling them? Yes, thank God for the bill that Rod mentioned earlier. That starts the process in January of 27. But what if 50% of Virginians were aware and weren't buying them? The race would be to see if legislation was put in place to ban the plants, or would it first be that the retailers aren't selling them anymore? If folks are aware that these things are bad for them, I think they're going to stop buying them. Likewise, I think they'll take matters into their own hands, so that Liza and others, LERA, FERA, leading these volunteer efforts, that'll become more common, and people will learn and take matters into their own hands. Just a couple other quick barriers, challenges. I would just keep the barriers to entry minimal. You know, to join an alliance, no cost to join, no risk, make it easy, only upside. Be flexible, be persistent. If someone is going to join your alliance or join a volunteer effort based on an email, great. Some of them may require a phone call. Some of them may require an in-person presentation, not for a volunteer, but to get an HOA to join. Yeah, so I probably have a couple others, but I think I hit the main ones. It's really know your audience. For me, that's really important, and keep the focus on public awareness. That, I think, is the ultimate paradigm shift in this whole effort.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I mean, I think it really rings true for a lot of people when you say meet them where they are, or meet people where they are. Wendy, can you share some of your biggest obstacles and how you guys got through them?
Sure. So because we're all about coalition building and bringing together these neighborhood associations rather than individual volunteers, we had some very sort of distinct challenges. One of them is we found it surprisingly hard to get a reliable list of neighborhood associations in our county, you know, to get the current presidents. And, you know, and we found, like Mike mentioned, just sending the email was truly not enough. It took more than that, because it may be that the board or the president of the neighborhood association really has no interest in invasive plants or no knowledge or understanding of the issue. And though somebody in their community might be very gung-ho. So that was problematic in the beginning. We found that direct contact at events often gave us very enthusiastic individuals. We call them Friends of FERA or FOFs. But that didn't always translate into them going back and, you know, taking that extra step of getting their board to sign on with us. So we, you know, follow up emails with them. We had to kind of keep pressing them to, you know, take that extra step. We know you're excited. We've got you on a list to get our updates, et cetera, but we need your neighborhood association. So that was a lot to, we've had to give a lot of presentations. And so it's been slow growing our coalition. Now we do have 50 members at this point with over 53,000 households, but you know, we're a large county. We have a long way to go. But it's, you know, it's very much our presence. Not a lot of resistance when we do a presentation. Typically, when we educate about invasive plants, we talk about the problem, we talk about, like Mike said, we make it very easy for them to sign on, no cost. All you're doing is saying you want us to go fight the fight for you with our local government and state government at some point, that you want us to keep this matter in the front and ever present. Property management companies were a real problem. They put up a lot of resistance and just haven't quite gotten past that barrier. Neighborhoods that are run by those. One of the big things too is that people have a hard time wrapping their heads around an invasive plant organization whose main focus is advocacy and not stewardship. It's understanding the importance of having an advocacy group out there. We have a lot of stewardship groups up here in Northern Virginia, so we're filling a niche, but it is hard for people to understand exactly what we're doing, the impact that it could have, and the important impact it might have long term. And finally, when we were actually doing the advocacy, one of the things we heard time and time again from our county officials, budget constraints. Every time we had something that we thought this would be really great, public awareness being crucial, as Mike said, public education about the problem, getting people to understand so that they'll make the right choices when they're working on their private property. They would be like, well, that'll cost us. We don't have the money, that'll cost, that's a hurdle. We've got an end run, a workaround that we're talking about, but most of our supervisors get that there's a problem out there. They see it, they understand it. Getting them willing to put the budget towards that, or helping us with our statewide campaign to get service districts, I'll talk about in a minute. That's going to be the next step, is making sure we're going to really be able to get a comprehensive, unified action going, and that's what we're heading for. But it's slow going. Advocacy is slow going. It's not a quick solution, but it's a long-term, bigger picture solution. Hopefully.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. I think it's really important that you share that aspect of the invasive plant, movement, the advocacy. And I'm just going to ask you to stay with us here, because I wanted to segue into you all. Obviously, we want to hear your success stories as well, not just everything that went wrong, but I know that you have all accomplished so much. So Wendy, you said you had some more to talk about with that. So why don't you just go ahead and share with us some ways your organization has accomplished a lot and what more you're going to be doing.
Sure. So I'll start, before I get to our current campaign, I want to talk about one of the things that we're really been, I think, very successful in, is developing positive relationships with our Board of Supervisors and county officials. Not only do we help them constantly remind them to recognize that invasive vegetation is a real problem worthy of their consideration among the myriad of other problems they deal with, but also that we kind of push them to want to take action. And they see FERA and all the other organizations that are working on this issue, and their constituents that are kind of doing some pushing, all these invasive plant groups and FERA, that we're partners in finding a solution. It's a big problem. We're going to partner with them. We're going to help them find a solution. And they should rely on these people that are out there every day. Those of you on this phone call, many of you, that rely on our expertise to help them find the solution for this. We've also served as a liaison between the county supervisors and some of our coalition members with specific concerns. We've been able to serve that role, so that's been a real success. But really what we're looking forward to is a statewide, we have really good alliances with the other organizations, and I've talked about that. Right now, we're working on a current campaign, a statewide campaign that it's going to be hopefully a future success. And this is establishing an invasive vegetation service district. And what service districts do is they raise money to provide additional, more complete or more timely services of government. And we feel that that's what invasive vegetation is. The current powers of service districts list pests, they list beautification and landscaping, a lot of stormwater, a lot of road, those kind of things. We feel that there's been an omission. And basically we call this the invasive vegetation campaign, because that's what we want to add to the powers of service district, changing the Virginia code is going to allow us to, and we're working with, and this is part of what's made this possible, is working with groups like the Virginia Invasive Plant Coalition, VIPSI, and Blue Ridge PRISM, that enables to move beyond just the county to get a statewide change to the code, which then enables jurisdictions like Fairfax County and others across the state to change the Virginia code and enable us to set up invasive vegetation service districts that earmark money specifically for invasive vegetation, to be determined how it's administered and how it's run by the local jurisdictions. But it's when a jurisdiction tells us they don't have the budget, this is a way to raise the money that doesn't come directly out of the budget, but is specific for what we feel is a growing problem that can't be ignored and can't wait till, you know, the county suddenly winds up a little more flush. It has to happen now. It's just going to get more. The economic problem is down the road. It just gets more and more expensive to address. So that's why we're working the campaign. We need help. So we need anybody who wants to write to us about, we're looking for patrons right now. We need 2 senators, 2 delegates that are going to float the bill on this. So please write to us if you have somebody in your district, state legislators that you feel would be onto this and you'd be willing to work with us on championing this. So thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. And I think I heard you say you have what, 55 HOAs?
50. Yeah,
50 working with you. That's
Yeah.
a lot. And
Yeah.
I realize Fairfax is a huge county, but congratulations for that's
it's slow going, but it's happening.
Yeah, it's
yeah. It takes direct contact, and I think that's important. If anybody's trying to do this kind of coalition building, just be aware it's all about direct contact.
Direct contact. That's a good tip. Thank you. Okay, Liza, can you talk to us a little bit about the successes for the Glenmore invasive warriors?
Absolutely. I would say that I talked a bit earlier about how we've been able to institutionalize our group within the HOA. We have benefited, I think, because we have a very forward-thinking homeowners association board that has embraced the work that we do. So I mentioned already we were established as a subcommittee, and then we were funded by the board. That is to say, they gave us a budget to buy, capital equipment and operating expenses, the herbicides that we buy, and even some of the print material that we need to make to hand out. and then I think a very big win for us was when the Architectural Review Committee adopted this plants to avoid in the landscape document that we created. And they will send that out to homeowners who are getting ready to do new gardens, new landscaping. And I think it just in general will help increase awareness in the neighborhood of things that become problematic, things that are invasive, because as we all know, they're still being sold. These plants are still being sold by nurseries. And then I think our other big successes can be seen in our numbers. In 2024, we removed more than 3,000 invasive plants, and that ranges from, Japanese barberry to tree of heaven, Paulownia tree, all those guys. And that includes 1,000 trees of heaven, and about 1,000 honeysuckle vines. And we've really picked up our pace. I told you we added a day, and the sector leaders have really gotten more involved in their individual sectors, and we've increased our numbers. And so we have now, just in these first 6 months, removed more than 5,000 invasive plants, including 1,700 trees of heaven, or treated 1,700 trees of heaven, and more than 2,300 Japanese honeysuckle, just to give you a comparison.
That's amazing. And just in 2 years, yes.
Just in 2 years. And that 5,000 is just in 6 months. The 3,000 was last year. The 5,000 is just this 6 months. So
incredible. Thank you, Liza. And I live just 5 minutes down the road from Glenmore. And I think it's really a perfect example of just one neighborhood making a huge difference on the landscape. Thank you. Okay, Mike, let's talk about Lyra, the biggest group so far.
Yeah, no, I'd say, I was thinking about what is the accomplishment I'm most proud of, and I guess it would be that first one. And by the way, since I sent you the slide, it's 72, HOAs, going for 73 on Sunday.
Congrats.
But that's the key. Without this alliance, none of this stuff would have happened. And it was board members, general managers, residents. I saw a comment in the comments here, Dan, I'm sorry, Dan, I forgot your last name, but the importance of joining your landscaping committee, landscaping committees, just people coming together and forming this massive alliance. That's it's over half the population of Loudoun County is part of the alliance now. And it's not just HOAs, there are communities, there's 2 conservancies, and we certainly consider wineries, farms, environmental causes to be more than partners, but part of LIRA. And it's really probably our proudest accomplishment, and it just keeps growing. In large part, it's probably starting to expedite more so because of that second bullet, which, like I said, that was a lot of work. So the Loudoun County government has invested now or funded $2.4 million towards invasive plant removal in Loudoun
Amazing.
County. It was threefold. The first was that 250,000 I referenced earlier in late 2023 to come up with a design for the program. So they hired a consultant to build the program. In the meantime, late last year, we piloted for $150,000 6 pilots to remove things like bamboo. I saw some questions about what kind of stuff is getting removed in your area. So bamboo is on the list, Japanese knotweed, certainly some Bradford pears in an area. Oh, and the kind of places we target. So again, focusing on public awareness, huge part of this. There's a community known as One Loudoun. I think I saw Kate join the call. They have a park, Central Park. It's a very popular area. I'd say tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people go through that park each year. And they've got an area that was just along a creek that was just overcome with invasive plants. So what a perfect place. It wasn't necessarily Tree of Heaven or Japanese knotweed or purple loosestrife, but it's, there's some bad ones in there. There was certainly some honeysuckles and Bradford pears and such. But the key is now, when that stuff comes out, signage can go in, educational signage that people walk by. And now you're educating folks. You're moving that dial from 5% of folks who might know what an invasive plant is to someday, hopefully 50%. So that's where we hope that 2 million, and that was just approved in May. So 2 million was approved towards a program that would go to private landowners. It doesn't have to be a community or an HOA. It could be a winery. It could be a farm. It could be an individual landowner, but ideally those who have high visibility that can impact a lot of other people. So again, that public awareness at the forefront. I think I've looked for it. I haven't seen a bigger investment by a county in the country. So we're extremely proud of this particular investment. In fact, some states haven't invested this much. So unbelievable board of supervisors we have here in Loudoun County. We're very fortunate. In fact, I'll get to her in a second, but she's one of the 9. There's one of them on the bottom left. That's my own supervisor, Sylvia Glass, who's one of them, and very forward thinking, kind of like some boards that I think Liza just talked about her board being forward thinking. It's so important to have those folks on board, and again, across all 9 of our supervisors, they've been unbelievable. So other accomplishments we're proud of when it comes to public awareness. Scrape for the Grape might be one of the biggest ones. Beth Erickson heads up Visit Loudoun here in Loudoun County. That's our kind of like our tourism bureau-ish. And she called, and we partnered with Visit Loudoun and the wineries and the extension office to run an event called Scrape for the Grape, which started last year. And it's really just creating awareness about invasive species, namely that bug, the spotted lanternfly. But what a great symbol. I kind of liken that spotted lanternfly in a very different way to the panda bear for World Wildlife Fund. So it's kind of this symbol that people can relate to, especially, I don't know about where you are in Virginia, but I live in Ashburn. It was very light last year, but they've been moving eastwards towards DC where I live, and we're overrun with them this year. So people know about them. It's timely if you're trying to create awareness. That particular Scrape for the Grape was to help our rural economy by scraping many times at wineries to scrape the spotted lanternfly egg sacs before they hatch. And we were able to scrape 6.5 million this year with 800 volunteers at 19 sites. So it was great awareness. The media covered it in a big way, and it brought more attention to the real issue, which is the invasive plants, the tree of heaven, which draws it here. Three other things I'll hustle through here. The bamboo ordinance, Virginia Code 15.2901. Sorry, getting a phone call, hanging up. Which allows localities to control running bamboo, was passed back in 2017. Two of our supervisors, the one you see on the bottom left there, Supervisor Glass and Supervisor Brinkman, took up that. We approached them and said, hey, can you take up this law? We'd like it to be passed locally. At that point, even though it was passed in 2017, only 3 counties in all of Virginia had passed the bamboo ordinance. That was Fairfax, Wendy. That was Stafford and Fauquier. So if you live in a county where there's bamboo and it hasn't been taken up, I would suggest you bring it to your supervisors. Our supervisors passed it in May, and they're already getting calls. And it basically requires homeowners to control bamboo on their property and make sure it doesn't go beyond their property. Rod mentioned it, others have mentioned it, but I'll just call it the signage bill that requires retailers to put signage near invasive plants starting in 2027. Unbelievable effort by Blue Ridge PRISM. They really were the tip of the spear in making that happen. Many folks were involved, but Chris Lane worked with Blue Ridge PRISM and kind of led the way. And he reached out to Lyra, knowing that we are a swing county and a swing state, and it would be very helpful to get a letter from Lyra, and we got 120 signatures from Lyra and sent it to Governor Youngkin, and we'd like to think we did our part to help with that bill. And then last and definitely not least, proud of the boots on the ground effort, and that's the actual volunteer work that's done that Liza and her team are doing, and many others are doing. We started last year with Blue Ridge PRISM. They came up and led 3 different trainings in Loudoun County, 2 for Tree of Heaven, one with Hack and Squirt, and one with Basil Bark. And then they did an English Ivy training towards the winter. And we always got about 40 folks, I'd say, each time came out. You can send as many emails and newsletters and webinars, but in the end, 5% of people know what an invasive plant is. But if you do the actual work and you boots on the ground again and do the training, people eat it up. It's fun. You're outdoors. Yeah, it's hard at times, but it's very rewarding. And I'll take it. And 2 things have happened since Blue Ridge PRISM got the ball rolling this year. And this is what you would hope would happen in your communities. In our community, Tracy Whittington now leads our Ashburn Village invasive removal team that goes out every month and does a removal. We have 500 acres of common ground, 17,000 residents. So yeah, we have more volunteers to pick from. That does give us an advantage. Doesn't mean we always get them, but we will go after different invasives at different times of the year. This weekend, we're going after Tree of Heaven. And the last one I'd mention, doing this work and getting our name out there, there were 2 pros from an organization called Wetland Studies and Solutions who just said, hey, we'd love to use some of our free time to educate people. So now Larissa and Clara come out to a different HOA each month and lead a training in Loudoun. So if you're in Loudoun, ping me and I'll make sure we connect you with Larissa and Clara. And yeah, we've had 5 different trainings with them at 5 different HOAs to date. So a lot of neat things. I don't want to leave out the fact that what Wendy's doing is spot on. She's going after the politicians. They can create change. Bottom right corner, so bottom left is Supervisor Sylvia Glass. Bottom right is Senator Perry, who came and joined us for Scrape for the Grape this past April. And they're getting involved. They're more and more interested in putting forth legislation. Another one of our delegates put forth, I saw a comment in the chat about VDOT and getting them involved. He put forth a bill late in the game on getting VDOT involved, because God knows if you can't unsee these things and you drive down any major roadway in Virginia, certainly up here, it's Route 28, 66, 57, In the spring, you see all the Bradford pear, and now we're seeing all the tree of heaven. So if we can get VDOT involved, that would be great. And I think that's something that Blue Ridge PRISM is looking at, and Rod and company are looking at doing this year. So kudos to Wendy and going after the politicians.
Well, that's very true. You've talked about Mike at the end. The thing that all assails us is once you know what a invasive plant is, it sort of ruins your drive sometimes because you see them all along the side of the road and you see them everywhere, and it's you can't unsee them. Thank you. That was really inspiring. The numbers are amazing. 2.4 million. And just the sheer number of volunteers you've got and the spotted lantern flags removed, it's beyond maybe your wildest dreams 2 years ago in that magical workshop. And
Oh, there's a quick comment I got to make on that. It is interesting. I will say the board, one of our vice chair, Turner said, when was that? Oh, when they approved the program, which by the way goes live this fall. We're going to be doing a kickoff in August. So the pilots were last year. It goes live this fall, but he did want to send a reminder to because sometimes we're like not fast enough, not fast enough. You know, when you're working with any government or when you're working with the crazy Lyra people. But he said, just a reminder. You know, sometimes it takes a county government 4 years to get a stop sign approved. You guys did this in 16 to 18 months. This is nuts. But it was a very nice compliment, and it is true. It's been quite a journey, and it has exceeded our expectations.
That's a great success story.
Yeah.
So as segueing into that, I know this is going to be hard, but if you could just share your number one tip to everyone here in the audience on the best thing you can do to start an organization like yours, or what would it be? So, Wendy, what would be your number one tip?
I gave this a lot of thought, and I think it's to convey your own passion and to convey your sense of urgency on the invasive plants crisis. I think public awareness and public education is so crucial. And the more we can get the word out that this is a problem, it's a silent problem. You know, we are speaking for the trees. They can't say anything. And the more we can convey that, and it works to get the volunteers out. You know, it works in terms of the stewardship. It also works in terms of engagement of the elected officials, as long as you do what Mike was saying, which is not just make it an environmental problem, because then it becomes, and you know, please take this as I'm saying it is, you know, in people's minds, it's, you know, a bunch of, you know, retired folks out there with big straw hats with clippers, you know, and it's, you know, clipping away at the vines, and it's like, you know, birds, bees, and butterflies, who cares? We got to get past that. And so we got to make them realize it's not just an environmental problem, it's economic, it's health, it's bigger, and it's long-term. The effects, we may not see, you know, all those trees going down slowly, but surely we lose our canopy. For the 1 or 2 trees, nobody's going to think twice, but as the trees continue to go down with all the heavy laden vines, you know, it's long-term problem that they need to address now. And so sharing that passion, I think, is really important, both in terms of stewardship and in terms of advocacy. And I think the advocacy piece is really important. In our minds, the local and state government, it's their job to help solve the problem for the common good, you know, to help solve, because really they already have free labor. You know, and this is the hordes of volunteers that are out there doing the work. And this is, you know, many of the people on this call, they've got free labor. They need to help us manage that. They need to make coordinated, a unified in each jurisdiction to make sure it's really, and I perhaps am speaking because we're such a large jurisdiction. So maybe some of the issues we're facing are because of our size, but maybe smaller jurisdictions already have it together, but we certainly don't. And not to diss my county, but in terms of invasives, this is an area that really needs work and needs more local government help. In training people to get out. I mean, if they're not going to let us get out there and just, you know, we have parks that people can't walk into. They're so overladen with invasives. And if they're not going to be able to make that happen, have enough people to train people to be able to clear those parks, because people care about their parks and want to make those happen. There's plenty of volunteers. We certainly have a hordes of people willing to do the labor. But they also have to get their own labor force involved too. And we have ideas for that too. But anyway, so that's just some of the things. So the main thing is the urgency of the situation has to be dealt with now. It's a growing problem. Deal with it now and you'll save money in the long run and you'll avoid safety issues. Power Dominion, we have a great quote from Dominion Power about most of the power line outages are caused by trees falling. A lot of the trees are falling because of the vines. So, you know, it's just, now is the time, make it happen. Or we're gonna face much harder situation down the road. So that's my tip.
Okay, thank you. And how about you, Liza? What's your number one tip?
Well, and of course, mine is, I think, Mike and Wendy are at this,
Right.
30,000-foot level, and I'm here, literally in the woods. So I think for me, my number one tip would be find a few like-minded people within your community, within your neighborhood, who use the trails in these communities or who love their gardens and are avid gardeners, and invite them to an event, try to educate them and help them to see the interconnectedness between managing invasives and supporting these beautiful green spaces and the impact that the invasives have on them. And I would just like to say that I've been very inspired to hear Mike and Wendy talk, because we've talked to our county folks a little bit, not supervisors, but our county a little bit, because I think getting volunteers to work together would be really great. And I'm so grateful that we have this bill that's been passed, but we've not had our early queries embraced just yet. So I'm inspired to see how we can maybe begin to collaborate with neighboring communities. There's a solid group within my community that wants to volunteer. You think if you had a number of homeowners association, as Mike has put together, if you could begin to switch services. So not a tip, but something that I really look forward to happening.
Thank you, Liza. And in fact, VIPSI, the Virginia Invasive Plant Coalition and Blue Ridge PRISM, we actually worked with Margaret Fisher to send out a survey to we put out a survey asking everyone who is in a homeowners association or neighborhood association to fill out. And we're starting to get some of the results, and that survey is still open, and we do need more responses, and I'll be sending that out in my follow-up email with the recording of this program. But one of the things, just by glancing at it, I saw is that at least half the people surveyed recognize, and I guess it's self-selecting because they're answering the survey, right? But they recognize that they said that the invasive plant problem is really bad. But then they also, with the next question, say, what type of organization, or is there any organization or plan to deal with it? And just a little less than half said there's absolutely no plan. So what you all are doing is so important, leading the way and showing that it can be done. Okay, Mike, I know it's hard. What's your number one tip?
Yeah, I'm just going to double down on know thy audience and get your message right. So if you're trying to persuade an HOA board to join your alliance, no risk, no cost, great benefit to your residents. If you're trying to get somebody who's not as concerned about the environment, focus on health and safety in the local economy. If you're looking at someone who is very concerned about the environment, we've lost 3 billion birds and 40% of our insects in the last 50 years. One of the top reasons is invasive species. A potential volunteer, make a difference while having fun, learn a new skill, get some exercise, meet some great folks. And a politician, it could be your constituents are concerned and need your help. So whatever audience you're talking to, as I'll steal that from Rowena, meet them where they are. And I think that's the key to get the ball rolling, is just to get your message right for that audience.
Hey, well, thank you, you guys. We're going to go right into audience questions. We got a lot of questions before, when people were registering, and we have some here that PRISM's been helping with, that people have been typing in, and we want to get to as many as we can. So unsurprisingly, probably the number of questions we got have to do with, and as you also, all three of you already saw, the most effective way to convince property owners to participate in invasive management and the best ways to turn out volunteers. I know with Lyra, there's a photo of a father and his little boy in a Lyra shirt for a Scrape for the Grape thing. How do you make something like that happen? Or, and even someone asked if you could suggest some psychological strategies to get buy-in from people who just see this issue as just an environmental cause that really has nothing to do with them. So, since you just talked, Mike, is there anything that else you'd like to share to help answer these questions?
Sure. Let's see. I think, well, so we have an instance right now where we're removing Tree of Heaven in our community. We're getting rid of all of it. We've got a lot. Well, I don't know, probably 200 mature trees scattered over, and not to mention all the saplings. We have that. We have another nasty plant we're getting rid of later this month, purple loosestrife. In both cases, and we've got some bamboo. And all three of those cases, some of that is on homeowner property. I think we start by just explaining why we're getting rid of it ourselves. Those bugs are going to be all over your deck real soon. Tree of Heaven. The purple loosestrife is going to crowd out all the other plants along the shore of the lake that you live on, and it spreads like crazy. And bamboo, your neighbors are going to hate you soon if it keeps spreading into their yards. But we wouldn't say it that way, but it's really just educating people and trying to explain to them what the problem is, and again, finding out what hopefully matters to them a little bit, where they want to take matters into their own hand. In some cases, in an HOA, we might help them financially, right, to remove some of this stuff because it helps everybody. Because if we don't get that purple loosestrife out of their yard and it's nowhere else, well, now it can move back to where we removed it. So perhaps even helping them with the problem. And in the end, sometimes you don't have this opportunity, but in the case of the new bamboo ordinance and the bamboo, well, we can use enforcement in some cases. So, I'll just hit that first question. I'd start with just trying to educate them. Again, most people don't know they have a problem. If it's Nandina in their yard, which I used to have, it can make your pet sick. Okay, that quickly gets someone's attention who has dogs. Whatever it may be, try to find something that might resonate with them in a kind and educational way. But then also maybe talk about how it affects neighbors, and then ultimately, if you can, and you have to, then go to enforcement.
Liza, you had mentioned getting some, trying to make friends with some like-minded people in your neighborhood and talking with them and maybe building some momentum there. Do you have any other input in how to answer any of these questions?
Well, I think that a recent foray for us, because I like the idea of educating children and engendering a love for protecting the environment in them. So a recent activity we undertook was I went and talked to 2 scout troops and offered, just an explanation and some photos of the work that we do, and invited them to come participate. And, we've been thinking about the fact that teens need service hours for various clubs that they belong to. And so we've been reaching out in that way, both within the community, but also, as I say, with scouts who are in the area. And I think Japanese stilt grass is a great place for young people to start because it's easy to hand pull. You're not using any tools. And I think that's a great way to begin that relationship. So that's something we're hoping to see good results from. I don't have much to say about the psychological strategies for getting buy-in. I think it's difficult. You've heard us. We all have that difficulty. But I agree with Mike about helping property owners to see what's happening. And I can tell you, in the 2 years that we've been doing this, I have my own invasive warrior Glenmore email, and I get emails from community members now who say, oh my God, I think I have a tree of heaven in my property, or oh my God, is this multiflora rose? And so I think, you know, awareness and knowledge is required to begin to convince people to participate, because as soon as they realize they've got it in their yard, they pretty much want it out.
Yeah, I know. I think I saw a Japanese bittersweet vine for the first time, a very tiny one on my property, and I think I lost 10 seconds of my life because I just kind of like blanked out, like that can't be what I think it is, and I
Yeah.
yanked it out with the force of 1,000 suns. But it really affects you if it's on your property and you know what it is.
Yeah.
So
Can I just add one more thing?
oh, absolutely,
So as
Wendy.
an organization, we don't do stewardship individually. Inez, Rake, and I do a fair amount of stewardship, and we've been involved in stewardship. You know, we individually do a lot of stewardship projects. And one of the things that I found very effective is routinizing it. In other words, making it the second Saturday of the month. We're going to have a crew out there, or, you know, having it to be a particular, you know, once a month, whatever the time thing is. Once a month tends to work well. Once a month, we're going to have a crew working in our community, blah, blah, blah. And if you make it a routine from, you know, 9 to 11 or 10 to 12, whatever it is, 2 to 4, you know, whatever it is. And you also try to make it for the cooler months. You know, getting people out in the heat, it really turns people off from doing the work if they're really uncomfortable in the heat. So making it, you know, a fall and spring thing that you're out there doing the work for 2 hours, and, you know, no experience necessary. Come on out, join the community. You make it a little, you know, you have a table set up, some people bring some cookie, you know, you make it a fun thing, and it's a routine. They know the second Saturday of the month or the first Saturday or whatever it is. Making it routine seems to really help too, to make sure you get people out there. And the community service hours can be really helpful to the high school kids, and it was mentioned, yeah.
And
So-
Rowena, if I can touch on that too, just because that is one that I want to hit, because I saw some questions that really touched on liability when it comes to kids. Real quick though, what Liza said was spot on. Japanese steelcrest, great idea. We're going to do that. I'm stealing that one, Liza. That's a great idea to get more kids involved. And when you saw the kids, that was for Scrape for the Grape. Literally, the tool was a little credit card size scraper. Even then, though, and this is what I would say about liability, we have every volunteer sign a waiver before they begin work. Hasn't been tested, but usually people take it a little more seriously when they know there's a waiver that has to be signed. And then the last quick comment I'd make is it's fun to see partners like, I don't know if you guys have heard of Sustainability Matters, but they've done some collaboration locally in Loudoun County with LIRA and on invasive plant removals and native plantings with our local schools and middle schools. I just met with Goose Creek Association recently, who wants to do the same kind of thing where they own some property and they want to set up invasive plant removal and pollinator gardens and signage to make it a destination for field trips for kids. So it's really great to see partners throughout Loudoun County going after that K through 12 group.
Great, great. I guess this sort of relates a lot to the last set of questions, but, and, you know, maybe Wendy, you have some strategies for this, but do you guys have a template of points that you make when speaking to neighborhood associations to get involved? So when you're, now it's not just your neighbors or, you know, you're trying to make friends or whatever, but this is if you're actually going to the organization itself or the board. Do you have a certain strategy that you have to talk with the, like, basically the governing part of your HOA and or your civic association?
Do you want me to answer that first?
Sure, go ahead, please.
You mentioned me, I wasn't sure. Were you calling on me? So when we first got
Yes,
started,
I'm calling on you.
all right, I'm ready. When we first got started, we found that what we did, we'd go into a board and we'd talk all about fear and what we were all about. And we'd maybe have one slide on, you know, invasives and what the deal was with invasive plants. And we've come to realize that, you know, more education is needed, and that 5% Mike keeps mentioning, it's a reality. So we now have, you know, what we call our sort of invasives 101 plus FIRA, plus our service district campaign that we do, our slightly longer slideshow that we do with boards, where we spend a little time talking about, again, environmental impact, economic impact, health impact of invasive plants. We start with that. And we ask them what they already know. You know, we show some invasive plants. Who knows what these are? You ever see these in your yard? You know, we bring it home to them, literally. And then we move into, okay, you know, stewardship. Here are a bunch of organizations in the area that do stewardship. You know, talk to them, you know, get involved with them to help the parks, and then also to help your own HOA common ground, to help your own private property. Additionally, the advocacy, and that's when we jump into our piece of, you know, help us with advocacy, join our coalition. Numbers matter. We need as many. When we go see a supervisor and we say we have 50 organizations, we have over 10% of the county represented, you know, they listen. They're like, okay, people care about this issue. And again, the numbers you have today are who signed up for this is also telling statewide that this is something people care about, or a portion of people care about. And so, you know, it's really about the education component, and then locking into, okay, what can you do? And the two pieces of what you can do is, and stewardship's not for everyone. You know, I'm a little older, and I have friends that are even older than I am, and you know, are not able to go out there and do the clipping anymore and do the hard work. It's hard work. But there's something for everybody. Those can be the people that keep track of the land, of what's been happening on the land. Those are the people that, if they're walkers, they can identify areas that need help. You know, there's things they can do. Those are the people that can do the advocacy when we need them to write, and they can organize writing campaigns when legislation comes out. You know, there's something for everyone in this movement, and making sure that you lead with that there's something you can do. And this is a time when people are feeling a little helpless. A lot of people are feeling a little helpless in terms of making a difference. So acting locally on this particular problem, they will make a difference, and letting them know that this is a chance to make a difference for the long term. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the next questions, do you have any short comments, Mike or Liza? Sounds good. Okay. So more like nitty gritty. You know, let's say you're starting this for the first time. You've got your group of friends, you want to go out there, and then, like all of us, you see everything and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So just practicality wise, how do you decide on which plants to focus on when there are just so many to remove?
How about I start?
Go ahead. Yes, please.
Okay. Because we do go out, you know, as I say, twice a month. We have routine dates. We go out twice a month. We put together a calendar a couple of years ago. We've revised it a few times, but we used both things from Blue Ridge PRISM, from Northern Virginia Master Gardeners. I love that website, invasiveplants.org. We put together information from various sources and created a calendar of which invasive is most problematic in a particular month, and which is most vulnerable for being, you know, to be managed in which month. So for example, you know, you can identify Bradford pear in February, but they're already getting ready to bloom. So you can't treat them in February, you've got to treat them later. And so we use that calendar as a way to guide us in what we should be looking at next. End of July, August, we're looking at stiltgrass. But we know come September, when it goes to seed, we got to stop what we're doing. So being very careful to do those things and monitor when it's a good time and when things are most vulnerable. And then the other thing we do is based on number. If we've got an explosion of Tree of Heaven, we had a part of our neighborhood that had, I'm not joking, a field of Tree of Heaven suckers. A neighbor had, we think, cut down a Tree of Heaven without proper treatment, and there were like 800 tiny little suckers. You know, when that happens and it's the appropriate time, then that becomes a priority. So using a calendar, knowing when things should be treated, when they're most vulnerable, and then to some degree what is most problematic at a particular time.
That makes sense. Mike, do you have any comments?
Yeah, no, I definitely think time of year is huge. So it's a great time to go after the vines. November, December, January, February, great time to go after vines. You can see everything. And there's no ticks, no mosquitoes, less poison ivy. You can still get it. I learned personally. So So do still wear your poison ivy stuff. But I think it's, what's the hot topic? And, I saw it in the thread. Someone said, I don't know, we should rain Armageddon on Tree of Heaven or something as a group or something like that. The Tree of Heaven is the hot topic. And that's something that, in fact, we're doing a training like this coming Sunday. I think I mentioned on Tree of Heaven, which I'm going to put in the in here. If anybody wants to join and you happen to be in the Ashburn area this Sunday, the same Larissa from Wetland Solutions will be at that particular one, so you can also get some expert. There you go. I did have it teed up. And I think that makes sense. If you're going to, as Liza said, if you're targeting kids, then, Japanese stiltgrass. So it depends time of year, audience, plant. So those are the things I'd look at. And overall, though, you want to feel like you were successful. So yes, you can get overwhelmed if you see 15 different kinds of invasives as you walk to your target. But just if you come out and say, look, we did a great job. We got rid of this particular plant, 90% of it or all of it today. And it's a good feeling.
Can I mention one more thing? So one of the things we've done with our supervisors is ask them to publish something we call Yard Watch. And we do a little blurb each month for their newsletters, and their newsletters their newsletters have quite a big reach if people read them. They claim that they're open and read, but we'll see. And we do a little blurb, and it's what we do is we sort of pick an invasive of the month. And what we do is here's what this invasive, Yard Watch, literally look out your window. Do you see this? Here's what this invasive is. Here's why it's a problem. And here's what you do to eradicate it. And we link very often to Blue Ridge PRISM to your
Thank you.
You have a terrific resource on each of these invasives. So, but we pick, for example, our next one's going to be porcelain berry. They're flowering now. The berries are up here, and the berries are just coming out. So right now it's going to be porcelain berry. We did honeysuckle last month because that was coming out. Whatever's sort of coming out right now that people can look out and see in their yard, and it's called Yard Watch. And again, and our supervisors were we're okay with putting that little blurb, adding that to their newsletters. And again, that's the public education piece. It's low-hanging fruit. It's not, it's not the be-all end-all of public education, but it's a start of getting people to notice what's in their yard. So I just want to mention that also.
Okay. So I just want to point out that it's 12:59, and I realize that this webinar is supposed to end in 1 minute, and I know that everyone's time is precious. So if you have to go, we understand, but we're probably going to stay on maybe just a little less than 5 minutes more. We're probably going to answer one more question. So if you can stay on with us a little longer, that'd be great, but we understand if you got to go. So I think this is kind of a very nitty-gritty person. Some of you talked about it a little bit, but we did get a few questions about, so this is great, but how does all of this invasive removal get paid for? Who pays? And another question was, is there financial help for removing invasives in HOAs? Can any of you talk a little bit about that? Like, who's paying for your stuff that you do?
I'll start again if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
As I said, Glenmore has given us a budget. So who is paying are the homeowners themselves, right? Because we all pay into the association a certain amount, and that gets divvied up into a bigger budget. We have a small budget, but that's where much of that comes. I will tell you, many of the people on the committee in our invasive warriors will pay for things ourselves a lot of the time too, because you're committed. But that's where it comes from in large part. But, is there financial help for removing invasives in HOAs? We've begun exploring grant applications with groups like in our area, Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District, because some of what we need to do is not just remove the invasives, but restore the land that had been beset by invasives. So we're beginning to explore that, and you can get grant money, even though it is a homeowners association, right? They give grants to homeowners, individual homeowners. So we're going to explore that and see if we can get some reimbursement monies and matched funds and things like that for those projects.
I think that's a really important point that maybe we didn't emphasize enough, but we at PRISM definitely do that, is that, you know, removing invasives goes hand in hand with the prioritizing native plants and how important they are. And, you know, restoration, planting native plants is so important. And really everything we do in this field of removing invasives is to benefit native plants. One thing that I would like to add is, I know Rod worked hard on this, is that there are several cost share programs that the Department of Forestry offers for landowners who have hardwoods on their property. And you can find out more about that at the Department of Forestry website to tell you more about their cost share programs or their hardwood initiative, which is the name of the program. And that was, we also featured that in our last newsletter. But that is something, if you have land that's got hardwoods and you've got invasive plants, maybe there's some way to get a little bit of help with that. It is 1:03. I am so sorry that we can't get through we did touch on liability waivers and local government, so that's great. We weren't really able to talk about herbicide use. Just really quick, I'm assuming, I know Mike uses it because we taught his group how to use it. Liza, for a smaller group, like just a one neighborhood, Glenmore, how do you deal with that? Do you guys use it, or do you just use manual control?
No. We use herbicides every time we go out. We were originally educated by you guys. We also collaborate with a professional applicator who
Got it. Okay.
oversees, but we do it. He just has helped to train us and oversees us. But because homeowners associations, that's private property, you can do whatever you want to do on that as long as you've got approval of your HOA board. And so, yeah, we do that all the time.
Thank you. That's a really good.
And I'll just say one last thing. I
Yeah.
have a PowerPoint, an educational PowerPoint that my team has to complete yearly. And we have
Right.
expectations for recurring education. And if there's something new, we learn about it together and we make sure we know when it should be used, what's the temperature, you know, what are the trees? Is it selective, non-selective, all those kinds of things.
Wonderful. And that is definitely, you know, the right way to do that, to be very, very cautious and make sure everyone is well informed and educated on that. We have a commercial applicator on our staff who is able to be there for public lands, and that's been really useful for Blue Ridge PRISM because the rules are different for public and private land. And yes, I think that Wendy talked a little bit about ambiguous property boundaries. So anyway, we do have to end this. It's 1:05. This went by so fast. I just want to thank you guys again, Mike, Liza, and Wendy, for your time and your generosity and just helping us understand how to do this and sharing your tips. I'm just leaving everybody's contact info on for a few minutes. So everyone has a chance to write it down if you live anywhere near them and want to reach out to them and ask them any more questions. I'll also put their contact info in the follow-up email that I'll be sending you all in a few days. But we're just so impressed with everything that these groups have done. And of course, Blue Ridge PRISM is always here to help you with awareness and education and training. So count on us for any help that any of you guys need. I do want to put that, you know, these are 3 great examples, but they're not the only examples. And I'm sure there are other invasive plant neighborhood association groups out there that we might not even be aware of. So if you yourself who are on this call are part of a group, please go ahead and share the name of your group and your contact info in the chat. I will in a little bit share the one that is very active in the city of Charlottesville. That's not necessarily a neighborhood group itself because it was started by the city forester, the urban forester of Charlottesville, and it's called CHIP. But the Charlottesville Invasive Plant Partnership. But it is a wonderful group that brings together public and private groups to help different neighborhoods in Charlottesville treat invasive plants. So I'll put that in the chat soon if you're from Charlottesville and you want to join something like that. And I hope you all will share as well so we can all see what the different resources are out there. Really quick, we just want to thank you again for being here. You'll see on this slide the different ways you can get a hold of us, our website. You can contact us at info@blueridgeprism.org. You can follow us on social media. And of course, we always welcome volunteers. We are so happy to be able to provide this program free of charge to the audience, but just know that it's not free of charge to us to be able to produce something like this. There are expenses that are involved. And so if you are in any way impelled or feel the need to want to help us or to donate to Blue Ridge PRISM so we can continue to provide free programs to the public and to increase awareness and raise awareness about invasive plants, we would love and appreciate any sort of help, big or little, that you can give to us, to Blue Ridge PRISM. We are a nonprofit and survive solely on donations. So thank you in advance for all your generosity and all your interest. It makes a huge difference. Once again, I just wanted to remind you that the recording of this webinar will be emailed to you in a few days. So sit tight and you'll get to watch it all again. And then finally, I just want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Rod, for the great PRISM update. There's going to be a short survey that pops up just so we know what we can, what other subjects we can explore together that would best serve you. So please just take a couple minutes to fill it out. And we're just grateful to the Virginia Environmental Endowment and all of our supporters for helping us provide programs like this. So with that, I'm going to end. It's 1:08. I apologize. 8 minutes ahead, 8 minutes over, but thank you to everyone who stuck with us. I think we learned a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.